Hi, I'm Cecile. I'm one of the founders of AIM Center and a guide in the Modern Mystery School, which is in the lineage of King Solomon, a hermetic lineage. And today I'm here to talk to you about Empower Thyself. And that's a two-day class, in which I teach the ancient tools that initiates have used for thousands of years to strengthen the energy field and to connect more to the divine self, to know themselves. It's a portal, really. What is an initiation? It's a portal. It's a doorway into the reality that is more connected to the true you. And that reality is something, you build over time. It's an understanding you develop over time after your initiation. But the initiation facilitates that process. And it brings down a part of you, and it connects your soul, your spirit, into your physical body more, so that you can become an embodied spiritual being on this planet, on this earth, and live your life as a spiritual being in the physical, with this understanding of who you are as an eternal being. So that's where a lot of the power comes from as an initiate. It comes from, I'm an eternal being, I have never been born, therefore I can never die. This is not, it's not an intellectual understanding. It's a deeper knowing within the self. And some of us already know this, some of us don't. And some of us need to deepen that relationship with that eternal part of the self. But what happens is that when we develop a relationship with that eternal part of ourselves, we can start to heal faster. So many things in our lives get accelerated because, we can do therapy, we can do healing, but if we're not connected to the eternal aspect of the self, that becomes, it stays in that lower realm. But if we kind of start elevating into the higher self, we have a different viewpoint from which we can consider the problems we have in our life. And from that viewpoint, we can start seeing reality more as it is, actually, because we have less filters, less lenses through which we start seeing the world. So the initiation of Empower Thyself is a very important step in this path of progression, because it's the first initiation and it makes us more able to deal with the physical world, and it anchors that spirit and soul more deeply into our physical body. Now what happens in the 2 days is that I'll be teaching a number of things. There'll be information around the soul, the aura, how to work with our energy bodies, what is lineage, where does it come from, and all of that. But then as well, what we're going to do is we're going to practice rituals. These are ancient practices that the initiates have used for a very long time to strengthen the energy field, to receive more clarity, to have more alignment within the self, with the self. And so as we practice those rituals on a daily basis, it's as if we get elevated and enlightened on a daily basis, and it helps us to transmute and shift aspects of the self that we need to bring into the light, but then also helps us to transmute and shift the daily stresses of life. Like if we had a difficult conversation or an interview or a stressful moment in our life, the rituals will support us to navigate that, because they are creating an energy field around us of positivity. And that positivity comes with us wherever we need. And it also helps us transmute our own emotions, of course. Then some people describe themselves as empath, or people who are sensitive to energy. And so this class is really beneficial for empath, in the sense that it allows us to have more clarity around what are my emotions and what are the issues of other people around me that I'm maybe just absorbing like a sponge. So this class helps us to learn tools to navigate that better. But it's also beneficial for people who find that they're spending too much time in the mental realms and they want to start feeling more, because most of the time when we are feeling a bit disconnected from the self, it is because we are overwhelmed by the sensations and by the energies that we're perceiving in the world. So the class also helps us, the tools of the class help us to navigate that part as well. So in essence, there's so many benefits, and you can read about it more on the website as well. But ultimately, some of the benefits include how to connect to your higher self, how to get more clarity on your mission, on your purpose, how to strengthen your energy field, how to purify your field, and then ultimately the beautiful and sacred ceremony of initiation, which anchors more light to the self in a very particular way. So it's almost as if like, your crown chakra that we have up here, the flow of light that comes to the crown chakra now becomes bigger, and that light flows through you and starts pushing out any kind of blockages you have in what we call the central core, basically here in that alignment of the chakras. And so the river, the flow of that light becomes wider and bigger through the initiation. And in these 2 days of the class, it's a preparation really for that additional light to embody in the self. And so I tell people that after Empower Thyself, it's quite normal to have a period where, that light shines on everything in your life. So it's a process of readjusting because it's a new beginning. But if you feel like you want more from life, you want to discover more about who you are and how you are meant to work in this world, what you're meant to be doing. And also if you already know and you feel like you need more strength, more power to carry through with your plans, then this is really highly recommended. Of course, the prerequisite is the life activation. It's a session that I do one-on-one with people, and it creates like a fertile ground for this process to happen. So that life activation has to happen first, ideally. There's more material to come about the life activation separately, but the life activation, and the difference between activation and initiation is that an activation activates a dormant aspect of the self, and the initiation anchors more light to the self in a permanent way that allows us to bring that into all areas of our life. And so together they work, the activation starts the process, and then the initiation is the next step. And so the path of progression that this initiation is part of the lineage of King Solomon. And it's a very ancient spiritual path from the Hermetic mystery traditions. And in this path, that many, many famous people have walked, from King Solomon himself, obviously, who was very well known in all the ancient texts. He's mentioned in some form. But then, of course, he didn't make it up. That was a lineage that was already existent before him. So he was an initiate, or a very high initiate, a lineage holder in this lineage. But after him, many other people studied and trained in this lineage that many of you might have heard of. Like Rudolf Steiner or Carl Jung, or musicians or like politicians as well. But then in the most recent years, it has become more of an open school. And so it's something that has happened in the past before. So the mystery schools have been open to the public many times during the history, the thousands of years of their existence. But very often they had to go underground again because it wasn't the right time for these teachings to be shared more widely. There will be attacks and so on. So now is actually a time where the world is ready for these kind of teachings, and that's why it's so widely available now. You can get initiated into this lineage by someone like me, a guide, which in the past you would have had to really kind of know a person who knows a person, and then sometimes it would also just have been for select few. So this is a very exciting time that we can share these initiations in this way nowadays. So that's kind of a little bit on the background and the lineage. I think maybe I should do another video about this to go a bit deeper on lineage itself, because it's an important, it's an important component of what the power of this initiation is really, because it comes from the fact that it's a lineage. So I didn't make this up. It didn't just come to me in a dream. I received this from a teacher who in turn received it from a teacher, and so on. And so for thousands of years, this type of teachings have been orally transmitted, which is why the work I do is always done in the physical. It has to be a physical transmission. And in the physical, I can transmit the energy I have received to a student or to a person who wishes to learn these teachings. And then ultimately, as that transmission happens, these teachings become yours. As in, like, you are becoming an initiate and you have the power to use these rituals, which is why it's known as Empower Thyself, because it's about you learning to empower yourself, you learning to embody your own power through these practices. So you don't depend on me as a healer or on someone else to kind of connect to the light, but you strengthen your own relationship to the divine self. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a collection of information around Empower Thyself. Of course, if you feel called to do this, I would suggest the best thing is to discuss it with a guide. Like if you are in London or Europe, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'm very happy to find time to speak. But then equally, I am familiar with many guides who work in other parts of the world, so I can also refer you to people that might be closer to your area.